And this is a lesson that I learned a long time ago, and one of my mentors in my life, and I was very fortunate to have him, was a fellow by the name of John Wooden, Coach John Wooden. I don't know if you know who that is or not, but he just passed away. It will be 2 years this coming June, and 99 years old. And I've shared this before, and you may have heard about it. You may have read about it in our book, but I think it's worth bearing because it is a cornerstone concept to what we, to our approach to things. And so I was talking with him, and he was sharing with me. And if you Google John Wooden 7 things, you'll find these 7 things. I've got it on my computer that David's working on back there. But the 7 things, his dad gave this to him when he went into the 7th grade. And he said, 7 things that you should remember for the rest of your life. And they're great 7 principles. They really are great 7 principles. But one of the principles that he wrote down there, number 4, was read from good books daily, or drink from good books daily, especially the Bible. And that impacted me as I was listening to this, because I don't know how many times up to that point I had set a goal to read from the Bible. Now, Larry asked you, how many of you have ever set New Year's resolutions? Let me ask you this. How many of you have ever set a goal? Raise your hand if you've ever set a goal. Okay? Now, raise your hand if you've ever set a goal you didn't achieve. Raise your hand if you've ever set the same goal again and didn't achieve it. Okay. Now, your brain then, something happens to your brain, because your brain starts to realize that most of the time you will not achieve the goals that you set. And your performance is really not determined by your conscious mind. Your performance is determined by your subconscious mind. That's where everything really happens. The subconscious mind has the ability to work 24/7. Your conscious mind really isn't working that well. And roughly, they estimate that somewhere around 85 to 88% of your brain cells are located in your subconscious mind. So if you think of your subconscious mind as being, have you ever heard of the quote that says, where a man's heart is, you'll find his treasure? You ever remember that? Have you ever heard of the one, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he? Well, what is the heart? If you took the word heart and substituted it with the word subconscious, what would that, how would that change your thinking as you kind of read that, as you listen to these things? So I look at it like this. Your subconscious mind is the richest soil ever available. Think of it as you're the farmer with the most fertile field that you could ever have, with all the nutrients, all the elements that you need to grow just any crop that there is. And I'm looking at this field and I'm saying, okay, I can take this apple seed, and I'm fairly confident that if I put this apple seed in this soil and let it grow, with this soil, with all the nutrients in it, the perfect soil, I'm going to get the most beautiful, biggest red apples you could ever get.
I'm also fairly confident that if I go over here and I put a seed of poisonous tansy weed, and I put that in there, that the soil doesn't care which seed I put into there. It's going to nourish it just as well as if it was the apple tree. If I put a pear tree in there, there's no way that that pear tree is going to grow apples, or is the apple tree, or the apple going to grow pears. Neither is the apple tree going to grow tansy. The seed is going to produce what the seed is meant to produce. So your mind is that way. It's that richest soil of all the world, and the seeds are our thoughts. And so 88% of our brain cells are sitting down here collecting all these thoughts that just continually come. That's why this concept of positive focus that we talked about is so important, because otherwise we have a dominant majority of thoughts that come in that are negative thoughts. So think of your brain as if you cut the top of your head off and you had a door, and the door looks like this, okay? So that if this part is closed, when it opens up, this part closes. Everybody with me? So I'm letting light in, letting darkness in. Remember, light and darkness can't occupy the same space at the same time. Light, darkness. And so that's the way thoughts come. So your subconscious mind is here. The guard of your subconscious mind is your conscious mind. Remember we talked about George Jordan, his quote, the conscious training of the mind and body, so that the mind and body will respond unconsciously to our values. That's because our subconscious. How often do we consciously think about breathing? See, our subconscious is fully programmed to take care of our breathing for us. We don't have to think about it.
We might think about it. We can think about it. We can do it. My conscious mind is making me do it. That's the first time my conscious mind has spoke up about breathing the entire time I've been with you. It hasn't even, my conscious mind hasn't even thought about the entire, my subconscious mind is completely doing all of that for me. So you've got these seeds now that are growing. So as thoughts come in, what they produce is going to be producing these things. So how do you control your thoughts? Well, it's a conscious mind. The conscious mind has to say consciously, we need to do positive focus. We need to do efforts. We need to be in motion. We need to be celebration. We can't be negative. We've got to be positive in where we're going. It just has to happen that way. But we have this experience. We talked about the horizon. And so the horizon sits out there. And I set a goal. And I set a goal with John Wooden. I said, Coach, tell you what, I'm a man of my word. I'm going to set a goal. I'm going to read 10 pages a day. Now that might sound like a ton. It was a ton. But 10 pages, I can do it. I didn't decide, though. I didn't decide. I just made a goal. There's a difference. I didn't decide. I just made a goal. I didn't kill off the alternative. I just made a goal. Okay? So I put it out there, and I progressed. And every day I progressed, I kind of celebrated. I progressed. I moved out here, and I had this goal that I was trying to achieve, and I'm moving towards the horizon. And then all of a sudden, I didn't read 10 pages. Now, you remember the definition of rationalization is lowering your standards down to your level of behavior? Okay, so I didn't read 10 pages today. The way I'll handle that, it's okay, though, because I'll read 20 tomorrow. So if I read 20 tomorrow, then I'm okay, right? And that's what I did. I rationalized. I hadn't decided. I was willing to accept that rationalization. So I hadn't decided. So I read 20. Now I'm back on track. Way to go, Lee. You're doing good. Now I missed 3. And now I'm like, oh, man, I want to get from here to here. I'm not there. I'm getting these emotions that are negative emotions. They're just feeding me. I can't do anything. And I'm experiencing guilt. Is guilt a good thing or a bad thing? It's wonderful. Guilt is wonderful if you use it the way it's meant to be used. Because without guilt, it's the same thing. Without pain, I wouldn't know where to treat myself. If I didn't have pain, I could have an arm that's dangling off and I wouldn't know to fix it. Without guilt, I don't know where to change behavior, the things I do and don't do. So guilt's a good thing until it becomes shame. And when it becomes shame, now it's not feeling about just what I've done or not done. When it becomes shame, it becomes about who I start feeling bad about who I am. So now you're moving into a different paradigm. I'm no good. I'm not capable of doing this. I'm not worthy. You see what I'm saying? Now I've moved into this space of shame. And that's why goal setting has done more to destroy ambition, to affect suicides, to affect all kinds of social problems and ills and psychological problems than almost any other concept. In the business world, there's been a white paper written by experts from Wharton, Kellogg, Eller, and Harvard, coming out talking about how goal setting is actually ruining businesses. And so you really kind of get down to that. I start thinking about, how does that ruin my kids? How does that ruin? How do we set goals for these kids? How does this whole process going on? There's something wrong with that process. So if we're going to talk about achievement, we're going to talk about how do you then achieve your 4 keys. We better understand this because you're sitting here setting goals right now just like you've always set goals. And if you set goals like you've always set goals, your subconscious mind is saying 90% of the goals, Lee, that you set, you never achieve. So I'm not going to pay any attention to this. But that's the soil. I can't grow the apple tree without the soil. And it's already been pre-programmed with negative thoughts. So how do we change that whole paradigm? So here I am sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, how do I break this? Well, so as luck would have it, truly luck in this sense, because I missed some other days and happened to be with John Wooden after I'd missed these days. Lee, how you doing? Are you reading every day? Well, does every day mean that I can skip a day and do more the next day? No. Are you reading every day? No, Coach, I'm not. I started and I stopped, started, same old thing. He goes, well, look, let's just figure this out. Why did you set that goal in the first place? Well, because you did. It was pretty cool what you did, and I've always wanted to do it. I've set that goal lots of times, so obviously I must want to do it. I've been setting it my whole life, off and on, and sometimes I do it for a while, sometimes I don't, so I must have wanted to do it. Well, he says, well, let me rephrase that question. Who would you be? Who would you be if you read from the Bible or good books daily? Now, that's a different question. And you see, what he was setting me up for is determining that vision. The very same thing when I asked you, who would you be? Who would you be and what am I now capable of? So Lee, who would you be and what are you now capable of? Would you be a better father? I hadn't thought about that. Probably. Would you be a better man? Probably. Would you be a better leader? Better husband? What would that feel like then to be that better? How would that feel? What would that mean to you to be able to do that? And all of a sudden this insight came to me and I started understanding why this man spent so much time when he would bring in a prep star that was all American, all everything. And he would sit down with him, and Ron had the opportunity to actually be there on the floor when this happens, when he actually coached the players. And Ron, you were there. I'm not saying anything out of school. That he was there, and when Coach Wooden would give his first lesson, he'd say, "This is how you put on your shoes, and this is how you put on your socks." And it was the small things that made the difference. And he was a great believer in that. So when he got done saying, he says, "All right, Lee. So would you have more confidence? Would you have more confidence?" See, putting on your shoes right and putting on your socks right is a confidence issue. It's not a shoe issue. It's not a sock issue. It's not a silly issue. It's a confidence issue. Because if I can run up and down the court and not worry about getting blisters because I know that I've got them put on correctly, I got the right size, that's a confidence issue. But anything that creates a blister, a friction in my life becomes a confidence deteriorator. It takes it away. What's the same thing? What's happening to my confidence? I don't read. I set this goal to read and I don't read. I'm losing confidence. And confidence with gratitude is the greatest attractant of great opportunities and great relationships. People are always attracted to grateful confidence. Grateful confidence is the opposite of arrogance. Arrogance is an outward display of a lack of confidence. So you understand this, how this kind of works. So he's telling me all this. So now he says, "How was your confidence?" I said, "Oh, I have pretty dang good confidence." And I wanted to say, "But Coach, man, I try, I stop, he stopped me." So then he made it real easy for me because he answered the next question. He said, "Lee, here's what you do. Here's what you do. Open up the book, read one word a day." Pardon? Read one word a day. The critical thing is motion. The second critical thing is celebration. So, if you have a vision of you being extremely confident, you being a better father, a better person on this planet, a better inspired, all the other things that come along with it, and you've got that vision, and then you ask yourself, what small step can I take today that will move me closer to that vision? And that step would be read one word. So if you read one word, then celebrate. I read one word today. Way to go. I'm not affecting my shame or my guilt. I'm affecting my confidence. And I'm in motion. Now, what happens when an object's in motion? Tends to stay in motion. So when an object's in motion, it tends to stay in motion. How many times do you think I've opened up the Bible? Now, you can ask me. Here's my question to Coach. When I asked him, I said, "Coach, now tell me truthfully, have you read from the Bible every day since your dad gave you this in the 7th grade? And he said, "Lee, probably not. But I don't remember when I haven't." Really? So now ask me if I've read from the Bible every day since this happened 12, 13 years ago. Probably not, but I don't remember when I haven't. It's so ingrained now in my lifestyle that it just happens. And so, how many times have I read the entire Bible now where I never had read it in the previous 50 some odd years before I had met him, and had attempted to probably hundreds of times. The concept of motion, what's the smallest step that I can take today? You get the vision. Your vision's your 4 keys. You've got your 4 keys sitting out there. That's your vision. What's the smallest step I can take today that's going to move me into motion towards that vision? So you have to develop a system that will cause you to ask that question. What's the smallest step today that I can do like that? When you achieve that smallest step, then you celebrate that motion. You see, you celebrate that motion, and it puts you in motion. And what will happen is, 9 times out of 10, you will exceed that.